Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fielding Learning, the podcast where we dive deep into English language and culture. I'm your co-host, Eric, and Maria is off today, and we are going to set sail on a topic that's both fun and relaxing: cruise ships. We're going to navigate through some common cruise ship terminology that will help you understand the lingo before you embark on your next adventure at sea. Cruises are such a popular way to travel. They offer a unique combination of relaxation, adventure, and cultural exploration. Whether you're lounging by the pool, enjoying a gourmet meal, or exploring a new port of call, there's something for everyone on a cruise. And knowing the terminology for a cruise can make your cruise experience even more enjoyable. Understanding terms like embarkation and portside can help you feel more at home on the ship and navigate your way around with ease. So it's important to learn new phrases and words, especially connected to such an enjoyable activity. So here at Fielding Learning, we are here to make learning English both practical and enjoyable, and learn cultural things as well. So cruises are not just about the destination, they're about the journey. So the moment you step on board the cruise, we're going to make it a great and enjoyable experience. So sit back, relax, and enjoy and imagine the ocean breeze as we introduce you to some key cruise ship terminology. So by the end of this episode, you'll be speaking like a seasoned cruiser. So let's get started. The first word that we have in today's podcast is embarkation. Embarkation. Embarkation is the process of boarding a cruise ship at the beginning of a voyage. So what's a sentence that illustrates embarkation? Here's one. Passengers go through embarkation before starting their cruise vacation. Important term. Number two, disembarkation. So that is when you come back, the process of leaving the cruise ship at the end of a voyage. So how would someone use this term? After a wonderful trip, disembarkation is the final step before heading home. So that is disembarkation. Another really good term. So let's go to the next English word. Itinerary. Itinerary. The planned route and schedule of a cruise, including ports of call. So how would you use the word itinerary? The itinerary shows all the exciting places the ship will visit during the cruise. The itinerary. And let me just say, the itinerary really affects how you pick your cruises, because you're very attracted to where you might stop. Maria and I have been on several cruises, including a wonderful cruise to Alaska a few years back. And the itinerary for the Alaska cruise was fabulous. So cruising and looking at various itineraries is really fabulous. It's fun to think about them. So the next term is port of call. Port of call. A port of call is a destination where a cruise ship stops for a certain period during its voyage. So that's a cruise ship stop. So here's an example of port of call. On our next port of call, which is in Barcelona, We'll spend the day exploring the city in Barcelona. So that's port of call, and the example being Barcelona. Barcelona is a terrific city in Spain. Been there before. Cabin. Cabin is our next term, English term. Cabin is the private accommodation on a cruise ship, also known as a stateroom. And that's important to know because commonly on a cruise ship, you would hear the word stateroom and you might hear cabin. So people use those two terms interchangeably when they're on a cruise. So here's the sentence. We were thrilled to find our cabin had such a beautiful ocean view. We were thrilled to find our cabin had such a beautiful ocean view. So that's a cabin. So our next term that is important for you to know before going on a cruise is suite. Suite. So what is a suite? A suite is a larger, more luxurious type of cabin, often with separate living and sleeping areas. So a suite is a larger, more luxurious type of cabin. So how would you say that in a sentence? You might say, the suite had plenty of space and even a private balcony. The suite had plenty of space and even a private balcony. Great word to know before leaving on a cruise. The next term is the deck plan. The deck plan. The deck plan is a detailed layout of the ship's decks, showing the location of cabins, amenities, and other facilities. So a deck plan is a detailed layout or map, you could say, of the ship's decks. So typically on a cruise ship, you might have between 8 and 15 or 20 decks, depending upon the size of the cruise ship, and they have different names. So, for example, a very common name on a cruise ship is called the Lido deck. The Lido deck is a common name, and you also have the Promenade deck. Those are deck names on cruise ships. So, the next term we have is the muster drill. Oh, actually, I forgot. I need to give you the sentence using deck plan. So let me go back for a second. So here's the sentence with deck plan. We use the deck plan to find the pool and the dining room. We used the deck plan to find the pool and the dining room. So that is an example of a sentence using deck plan. So the next term I just mentioned is muster drill. Muster drill. So a muster drill is a mandatory safety drill that instructs passengers on what to do in case of an emergency. A mandatory safety drill that instructs passengers on what to do in case of an emergency. So the muster drill, normally what you do, and this I've seen the whole time I've been on cruise ships, which is about 20 years, you go to a designated location the first night before you leave. Typically it's around 5 or 6 in the afternoon. And then you gather, and then you hear safety instructions, and then you often will put on your life jacket, and then you learn what you would do in case of an emergency. And that's called a muster drill. Very important. All passengers, every passenger on the ship is required to do a muster drill before leaving port. Otherwise, the ship cannot leave. It's a requirement. It's a government and safety requirement. Okay, the next term we have, actually the sentence for muster drill is, before we left the port, everyone had to participate in the muster drill. So it is exactly what I just said. Everyone had to participate in the muster drill. The next term is called a tender. Tender. So tender is a smaller boat used to transport passengers from the cruise ship to shore when the ship is anchored offshore. So that's a smaller boat used to transport passengers from the cruise ship to the shore when the ship is anchored offshore. So in many ports across the world, the cruise ships are too big to go into the actual port. So what they do is they basically they drop their anchor out in the harbor, and then small boats called tenders will take the passengers to shore. So that happens in many ports. So the sentence that we have here is, we took a tender to reach the island since the cruise ship couldn't dock at the pier. We took a tender to reach the island since the cruise ship could not dock at the pier. Okay, so let's look at our next term, which is shore excursion. Shore excursion. So a shore excursion is an organized trip or activity which is offered to passengers at ports of call. And remember, we learned a port of call is a destination where the cruise ship stops. So a shore excursion is an organized trip or activity offered to passengers at ports of call. So every place you go on cruise ships, they're going to offer you shore excursions. And of course, you have to pay extra money for these, but it could be trips in vans, it could be snorkeling, it could be zip lining. There are countless options for shore excursions, and they're a lot of fun. And in many ports, if you go on a cruise, you'll want to sign up for shore excursions because that helps make your cruise vacation more fun because you're doing something extra when you go to a port. So shore excursion. So here's the sentence. We booked a shore excursion to snorkel in the coral reefs. We booked a shore excursion to snorkel in the coral reefs. So the next term we have is all-inclusive. All-inclusive. All-inclusive is a type of cruise fare that includes most or all meals, drinks, and activities in the price. All-inclusive, a type of cruise fare that includes most or all meals, drinks, and activities in the price. But I must tell you, all-inclusive cruises are less common. On smaller ships, you're likely to find an all-inclusive fare, but you're going to pay more for the cruise fare. But what normally happens is, with especially larger ships, is you pay less for the cruise, and then each additional activity, like a shore excursion or what have you, would be an extra fee. So all-inclusive is an option, but it's not that common. And here's the sentence for all-inclusive. Choosing an all-inclusive cruise meant we didn't have to worry about extra costs for food and drinks. Choosing an all-inclusive cruise meant we didn't have to worry about extra costs for food and drinks. The next term is open seating. Open seating. Open seating is a dining option where passengers are not assigned a specific dining time or table. Open seating. So open seating is in contrast to having a specific time that you have your meal. So open seating gives you more flexibility for when you eat, but the negative to open seating is that there may be a big line of people waiting to eat that way. So when we have gone on cruises, we have chosen a specific time for dinner instead of open seating. So it might be 6 o'clock or 6:30, for example, and then just every day at 6, you would just go to your table and then you would have your dinner, and then that's easier and you don't have to wait like you do with open seating. But of course you're stuck with the time if you have a specific time. And as I just mentioned, open seating gives you flexibility, and that's what the sentence is. The sentence is, open seating allowed us to dine whenever we wanted each evening. Open season allowed us to dine whenever we wanted each evening. Another term on cruising that is very important to learn is formal night. Formal night. Formal night is a designated evening on a cruise where passengers are encouraged to dress in formal attire for dinner and events. A designated evening on a cruise where passengers are encouraged to dress in formal attire for dinner and events. It's called formal night. And formal nights have traditionally been where men would wear like a tie and a jacket, and women would have, of course, a very nice, beautiful dress or a cocktail dress. But what I've noticed in the 20 years that I've been cruising is that formal nights are getting less and less formal. So now on a formal night in many cruise ships, the man could just have a polo shirt or a golf type shirt with a jacket, and that counts as formal night. So they've even taken off the requirement for a necktie for men. So that's changed. So here's the sentence for formal night. We packed our best clothes for the formal night dinner. We packed our best clothes for the formal night dinner. So the next sentence we have is the cruise director. The cruise director. The cruise director is the staff member responsible for coordinating entertainment and activities on board. So the cruise director is responsible for coordinating activities and entertainment. That person has an important job, and you often hear from the cruise director on loudspeakers, and the cruise director will be saying, hey, welcome to the cruise. We have a lot of great activities for you here in the cruise, and you often get to know them on a cruise. So you might say, the cruise director announced the day's activities and shows over the loudspeaker. The cruise director announced the day's activities and shows over the loudspeaker. The next term is called the purser. And the purser is the cruise ship officer responsible for handling financial transactions, guest services, and administrative tasks on a cruise ship. The officer responsible for handling financial transactions, guest services, and administrative tasks on a cruise ship. So the purser used to be, one particular job, but now you have a whole cruise ship purser staff. So if you go down to the front desk and guest services to take care of things, you're going to find many people, and they all work in the purser's office. And you might say, we went to the purser's desk to ask about booking a shore excursion. We went to the purser's desk to ask about booking a shore excursion. So the next term is called the galley, number 16, the galley. The kitchen area on the ship where meals are prepared. The kitchen area on the ship where meals are prepared. So you could say, the chefs in the galley prepared delicious meals for us every day. The chefs in the galley prepared delicious meals for us every day. Now, in the old days, it was easy to get tours of the galley. You could get a tour of the galley, and that was offered on every cruise ship. But now they don't offer that so much because of regulations and sanitization requirements. But it was something that used to be a lot of fun, but we can't do it too much anymore. The next term is the bridge. The bridge is the area from which the ship is controlled, typically located on the upper deck. So it's the area from which the bridge is controlled, typically located on the upper deck. So you could say, the captain and crew navigated the ship from the bridge. The captain and crew navigated the ship from the bridge. Okay, so the next word we have is the stabilizer or stabilizers. Stabilizers are devices used to reduce the ship's motion and increase passenger comfort in the ship. So it's devices used to reduce the ship's motion and increase passengers' comfort in the ship. So we would say, thanks to the stabilizers, we barely felt the waves during the storm. Thanks to the stabilizers, we barely felt the waves during the storm. Number 19 is the beam, the width of the ship at its widest point, the width of the ship. So you could say the ship's beam was wide enough to accommodate multiple swimming pools. The ship's beam was wide enough to accommodate multiple swimming pools. So big ships have very wide beams. The draft is the depth of the ship's hull below the waterline. It's called the draft, the depths of the ship's hull below the waterline. You could say the ship's draft was too deep to enter the shallow harbor. The ship's draft was too deep to enter the shallow harbor. And that would be a reason why you would have tenders to take you to the shore, because the ship was too big and the draft was too deep to go into the shallow harbor. Now we have some other terms that tell us the different sides and front and back of the ship. So the front of the ship is called the bow. The bow is the front part of the ship. We stood at the bow to watch the sunset over the ocean. We stood at the bow to watch the sunset over the ocean. The back of the ship is called the stern, the rear part of the ship. The stern of the ship had a cozy lounge where we relaxed each evening. The stern of the ship had a cozy lounge where we relaxed each evening. So that's the back of the ship is the stern, and the front was the bow, is the bow. And you also have the left and the right. So the left is called the port side. The left side of the ship, when facing forward, is the port side. Our cabin was on the port side, offering great views of the coastline, the port side. And so the opposite side of the ship is called the starboard side, the right side of the ship when facing forward. The starboard is the right side of the ship when facing forward. So you could say, we enjoyed breakfast on the starboard side where the sun was rising. We enjoyed breakfast on the starboard side where the sun was rising. And the last term we have today in this introduction to cruise ship terminology is the word cruise line. Cruise line. And what is a cruise line? A cruise line is a company that operates cruise ships and markets cruise vacations to the public. So it's a company that operates cruise ships and markets cruise vacations to the public. That's a cruise line. Like Norwegian Cruise Line, Holland America, Carnival, Celebrity Cruise Line, Royal Caribbean, MSC. These are all examples of cruise lines. So a sentence would be like, we chose our vacation from a well-known cruise line known for excellent service. We chose our vacation from a well-known cruise line known for excellent service. And by the way, two examples of that would be Holland America and Celebrity. Holland America is definitely known for excellent service. So those are our terms that we wanted to discuss in this edition of the Fielding Learning Podcast. Again, I'm Eric, Maria's husband. Maria was not available today for the podcast, but she'll be back next time. And we look forward to seeing you here and asking us for you to join us for future episodes. We love offering these episodes at Fielding Learning, where it's about immersion, not perfection. So tune in to these podcasts and follow us on YouTube, Instagram. Instagram is Fielding English, TikTok, and other social medias. Look forward to seeing you again. Take care. Have a great day.